Welcome all to another video from Dominant Mets Nation. Thank you all for returning, and thank you to some new people who I'm sure are seeing this video for the very first time. All are welcome. All are welcome. Oh, and folks, I just kind of started an X account short time ago, so my X is Dominant Mets. Check it out. Follow. I want to start getting that organized as well. So again, follow at Dominant Mets. Okay, so today we got another interesting video. Mets fans, baseball fans. We're going to be talking about some of the challenges David Stearns, Mr. David Stearns, Executive of the Year, some of the challenges he's going to face this 2024/2025 offseason. Also, we're going to go over some comments he made at that very interesting press conference the other day. Then we're going to go talk about some Mets who will probably, actually, you know what? Who won't be back. We're going to talk about Mets who will not be back. And the list is actually quite long, and we got some significant names on that list. And last but not least, and this is probably one of the most important things that I've been talking about for a very long time, we're going to talk about Stearns' shocking big move, folks. And remember, when Stearns was with Milwaukee, he made that signature move when he acquired Christian Yelich. Hasn't made it yet for this New York Mets ball club. Has not. Every GM slash president likes to put their mark on the team in some way. Sometimes they do it with a significant player. We know Stearns has done it in the past. We saw when the Mets started their new regime. They got Francisco Lindor. So who is going to be that key guy that Stearns targets? We're going to take a look at a couple names momentarily. All right. First, if we can get this video going on the right track, smash the like button, subscribe. We got a lot of fun videos to come. I love for you to stick around for the ride. Okay. So let's start. David Stearns' key challenges. What does David Stearns, the man, the myth, the legend, have to focus on? Okay, so right now we are a couple days removed away from the pain of losing to the Dodgers. Okay, I hope we are all feeling better. If you're not a Mets fan, hopefully, whatever fan of a team you are, maybe the Dodgers, maybe the Yankees, you guys are doing well. But other than that, we are all in the same phase. And that phase is we are trying our best to construct our team. In our mind, we are telling ourselves, what do we need to get better? Okay, so also we have to look at lessons. What are lessons learned? How can we learn from our mistakes, from our weaknesses? Okay, so David Stearns right now is in a predicament, in a situation where he has to build on success. Because us New York Mets fans, we want a World Series. World Series right now. That is the goal, and that is the objective. And again, I say this all the time. Do not let anybody lower the bar. All I screamed about last offseason was we're going to have to contend for a World Series. I don't care what the prognosticators say. I don't care what anybody says. We are going to fight for a World Series. Lo and behold, we were fighting for a World Series this year. I would have liked us to make a competitive move at the deadline. I felt that, we have a good team. We have good energy. We just need that finishing piece. And it turns out it could have been, if we made one or two big trades, that could have been the finishing piece. All right. So David Stearns says to the media, we've enjoyed this run. Our fan base has enjoyed this run. We have great memories from this run, Stearns said in his press conference. Stearns also said, it's also time for us to begin to move forward and see what we can do to build on this to ensure we have the type of sustainable competitiveness, true sustainable competitiveness that's eluded this organization for a long time. And honestly, I like that quote. I like that he wants to build sustainable success, but I also like that he acknowledged that it has eluded this organization. This team has failed at building a winner. Anytime this team has, in the last 30 years, where we've tasted a bit of, success, whether it's 1999, 2000, then we have a drought. 2006, then we have a drought. 2015, then we have a drought. 2022, thank God it was only a 1-year drought, but we want to build a sustainable, successful culture and team. So I like that David Stearns said that is the goal. Okay, so as we know, we have some big decisions to make. Big decisions. Probably none bigger than Mr. Pete Alonso. So that is going to be one of the big questions. And what did Stearns say with regards to Pete? Okay, quotation from Mr. David Stearns. David Stearns says, "I hope we have him back." Okay, I think we both understand that this is a process and everyone's got their own interest. Pete deserves to go out there in the free agent market and see what's out there, and then ultimately make the best choice for him and his family. Now, I've been saying all year, and this was before we made the playoffs, I said that I don't think Pete's coming back. I don't think he's coming back. I don't think he's a David Stearns player. And from the body language, I saw Pete on the field, and Pete didn't have his best season. I'm not saying he played bad. He had some decent numbers, but didn't have his best season. He went down in slugging, OPS, homers, RBIs. Okay, a lot of things he didn't do well. Postseason, he had some great moments. I can't take that away from him. His clutch during the regular season wasn't there, but you cannot deny that when the season was on the line, Pete Alonso held this team above water. So that really gave him a lot of clout, a lot of credibility, and showed this organization that when this team has its biggest moments, Pete can still perform. And I always said when Pete was struggling, and a couple of our folks acknowledge, this statement, Pete has so much talent, especially in the power department, where if he's being pounded on the outside corner, whether it's with a slider, breaking ball, and they're trying to get him to chase off the plate, all Pete has to do is focus up the middle and right field. That's all he has to do. And once he masters going oppo and up the middle, they'll start throwing him inside pitches, and then he could start turning on pitchers. Once he masters that outside strike zone and has that type of up the middle opposite field approach, that's how good hitters get out of slumps. That's how great hitters, remain great. And Pete has that ability. And I think David Stearns was able to recognize, I think Stearns recognizes that Pete actually brought even more value to this organization and this franchise than he gathered, than he initially thought. I really think that Pete opened the eyes of Stearns in that playoff run. I really do. And especially when you saw up and down that lineup, there wasn't much power. There really wasn't. Our lineup was actually bereft of power. And if you compare ourselves to the Dodgers, we're going to need to put up runs. Next year, yes, we're going to need way more than Pete. We ended the year without a DH. We ended the year with a lot of guys kind of not hitting their stride besides Lindor, besides Vientos and Nimmo in spots. Okay, so Pete is giving credit. Stearns basically acknowledged that he's interested, and that, kind of shocked me because Pete being a client of Boris and Stearns always being coy, always, kind of saying, all right, we'll see how things are when we get there. I kind of found that interesting how basically Stearns would just open his hand. So that kind of surprised me. All right, so Stearns went on to call Alonso a tremendous Met who has a foundational piece for this team during his tenure. He's been a foundational piece. In 6 seasons, we know he has hit 226 home runs, third all-time in Mets history, with 586 RBIs and a lifetime OPS of 54. The Mets president admitted that he has never talked contract details with Alonso, leaving those discussions to his reps. But now Stearns must weigh in on Alonso's meaning to the franchise, with his age being 30 and his rough season in 2024. So then Stearns goes on to say, I think that's always the question of my job. And our job is to put teams together that are going to win going forward. So we'll continue to evaluate that, not only with Pete, but for the entirety of the player landscape and the entirety of our team, Stearns said. We'll do that to the best of our ability and put a team together that allows us to compete next year and for years to come. All right, so will Pete be back here? Or will not be back here? I think at the end of the day, it's gonna come to one big question: value, and price. How much is Boras gonna demand, and how much does David Stearns value Pete? Value Pete at age 30 and most likely on the decline of his career. And here's my take. And I'm gonna make the prediction of predictions. I do not think that we're going to give him more than $22 million a year. I think it's going to be a $22 million 5 or maybe 6 year deal. They might want to lock him up for the rest of his career. If they go a little more shorter term, which I would like, then maybe it might go up to $25 to $27 million a year. So if they give him a 3-year contract, maybe you'll sign him for 3 years, $27 million. That equates to close to $83 to $85 million a year. So, as you see, the longer the contract, the lower average annual value. The shorter the contract, the average annual value will go up. But that's my range, $22 million to $27 million. I'm not going to break the bank. Pete Alonso was looking to get way more than 30, 35 million. That's not where his value is. And that would essentially crush the team in other aspects. Okay. So there's more questions. How will David Stearns approach the voids in the rotation? Behind Alonso, obviously, we got guys like Severino, Quintana. They're both unrestricted free agents. Manaea, he has a $13.5 million player option that is highly likely going to be something that he opts out from. We don't think he's going to take a $13.5 million player option. That would be foolish coming after his best season of his career. Notably, Stearns said that it would be great to have Manaea back, but whether or not the lefty returns, Stearns will look to add to the current rotation that he currently features Kodai Senga and David Peterson. So obviously we have not much there. Kodai Senga and David Peterson are the only two guys locked up. Yes, you have Tyler McGill, to all you McGill fans, but Stearns says we have to replace innings. Certainly part of that could potentially be from some of the guys returning, or we may look elsewhere. But we're going to have to add starting pitching. And you know what? Looking with this, what Stearns did last year in the free agent market, getting Manaea, getting Severino, I'm actually a bit excited. I am a bit excited. I would love Manaea back at the right price, but I like to see what other value talent he pinpoints and how, they basically, the new player or whatever pitcher they pinpoint, how they develop. Basically, the essentially new Manaea and new Severino, because I have all the confidence in the world in the way Stearns evaluates pitching talent, and you have to have confidence in the pitching lab. So I'm excited about that, even if we don't get a Manaea, even if we don't get a Severino to re-sign. Also, you got those rumors of Roki Sasaki. It sounds like that there obviously is interest, but you got to remember one thing. There's so much damn competition for Roki Sasaki, the Japanese sensation, the 23-year-old. You got the Yankees, you got the Red Sox, you got the Dodgers. You got so many damn big market teams interested. The Mets did a lot of work scouting him in the last year. So there's going to be a lot of rumors to come. Steve Cohen's going to have his big point pants on. Stearns is going to have his big boy pants on. We are shedding a lot of money. So that's a guy being 23 years old that I would target. But we have to see how that plays out. We have to see how that plays out. Also, we know that there's a lot of other big names out there, whether it's Corbin Burns, obviously Juan Soto, obviously Max Fried, Blake Snell, Alex Bregman, although I wouldn't invest in Alex Bregman. But you know what I'm saying? There are a lot of big name fishes out there, and there's a lot of good talent out there in this market. This is the year that the Mets have targeted, and they have targeted it for a reason. Okay, all right, so that's my quick synopsis of the David Stearns press conference. And let's quickly go through this. I've heard a lot of damn names about who will come back, I'm sorry, who won't be back. Who won't be back? Because, yeah, I've heard a lot of things about how fans want certain players back. Well, let's go through a quick list about who won't be back. Won't be back because there's a lot of certainty about players that absolutely won't be back. So let's go over a couple really guys who I don't think have a chance of being back. And let's start off with the most obvious one. The most obvious one, and I probably shouldn't even have this on the list. So I'll probably go over 6 or 7 guys because this guy, I don't even count him. It's so obvious he's not going to be back. But Adam Ottavino, approaching the tender age of 40 and having a very unsuccessful year and really regressing so much in the last 2 years. You thought he could be effective. You thought he could possibly be a 7th inning guy. Maybe you don't want to put him in the high leverage 8th inning positions, but he failed. And the only reason why he really remained in this team most of the year was because he essentially was a good teammate. He was a good teammate, and when they went to him, he always had said the right thing. He always supported the guys in the team, and I felt like they felt he was a glue guy out there in that bullpen. So maybe he couldn't really come up big like he did 2 years ago, but he was a very important piece leadership wise. So Ottavino is one of the 2 relievers who survived the Mets mid-season bullpen remake. Funny about that. But after taking a pay cut to return to the Mets last season, Ottavino put up a subpar season. In 60 appearances, he posted a 4.34 ERA, his highest since 2020, with 70 strikeouts in 56 innings. Batters hit .230 against him, his highest batting average against in 2021 when batters batted .239 against him. Ottavino did some television work for the first time during the last offseason and indicated that he might be seeking a career change. I mean, that's pretty obvious. The guy is turning 39 years old. He's definitely at the tail end of his career. If he chooses to play baseball, it's most likely not going to be with the New York Mets. Okay, so likely Ottavino will retire. Let's go with to another Met who could potentially retire, and that is Mr. J.D. Martinez. And how excited were we when we signed J.D. Martinez? Obviously, last year coming in from the Dodgers, having a very successful year. And he was that DH, that coveted DH, that coveted veteran that can influence the other guys in the lineup. I was actually so happy to have JD, even though he didn't play in most of April, and we had to wait to see how he fit on this team. I just loved seeing him in the middle of that lineup. I really did. So Martinez provided the Mets with an offensive spark in his first 50 games. That's when he batted .290 with an .870 OPS, 9 home runs, and 32 RBIs. But quite frankly, after that, he fell off a steep cliff, and he dove into an extended slump. In the next 70 games, he batted .194 with a .618 OPS with 7 home runs and 37 RBIs. Martinez lost his job at the DH to left-handed Jesse Winker. And it's these two are kind of quite obvious. The Mets were the second oldest team in all of baseball last year. The average age on the team was 30.4. Only the Braves, I believe the Braves were the oldest. They had an average age of 30.7. Guys like Adam Ottavino and guys like JD Martinez really are not going to have a spot on this particular ball club anymore. You're going to start building. You're going to start building and cultivating your young talent. All right, another guy where I think did the job is Harrison Bader. He was a guy who was going to, patrol center field, be a pinch hitter, bat at the end of the lineup. But the value that he was going to provide was he was going to give you that Gold Glove center field defense, and he was going to be a stopgap player until other guys like Drew Gilbert and your minor leaguers are ready. Harrison Bader, 12 home runs. He, provided decent speed on the bases, although he did get thrown out quite often. He was decent. He was decent, but I don't think it's worth re-signing him. I really don't. So we went over three guys, and three guys that I don't think anybody is going to, be upset over losing. Bader, Martinez, and Ottavino. Now we're going to get into some guys that are a bit more, I would say, upsetting. Okay, and the higher we go and the further we go into this, I believe the more upset people would be if these guys don't come back. So the first guy on that list, we'll go here. Jose Quintana. Jose Quintana provided the Mets with 2 seasons of consistency, posting a 3.70 ERA across 44 starts. This season, he stepped it up when the Mets needed him most, allowing 4 runs in the final 6 regular season starts for a .74 ERA. And you can't forget, those starts included some very big starts against the Brewers and against the Phillies. When we were calling for David Peterson, saying, what the hell is Mendoza doing? Jose Quintana went out there, he took the ball, and he showed us why Mendoza had confidence in him. Yes, he faltered against the Dodgers. The Dodgers weren't a good matchup for him, but Jose Quintana did a damn good job. But right now, at this point, the reason why he's on the outside looking in is it is time to turn the page. It's time to increase the talent level in this pitching staff. If your goal is to win the World Series next year, you're going to have to come up against the Dodgers. Most likely, you're going to have to go through them. A team like the Dodgers, I repeat, is not a good matchup from Quintana. Quintana is 35 years old. He's only getting older. He's a soft-throwing lefty who, has to hit the corners, and he has to get guys to chase off the plate. He's not going to blow you away. He's not a power pitcher. He doesn't have ridiculous movement. He's a guy that, I wouldn't mind re-signing him, but I really wouldn't mind moving away from him. Let's put it that way. Another guy where I wouldn't mind moving away, and this one is, remember, I said it's going to get tougher. Another guy I wouldn't mind moving away is Mr. Jeff McNeil. Now, there are 2 ideas with this. Now, Jeff is signed to a contract. He makes $12 million. I believe he's signed for another 2 years. Now, the thought process is, you can put him in a package right now. You can try to get something for him. Okay. Now, I think that David Stearns would have to be quite creative to, get anything of value for McNeil. Now, McNeil is the tricky thing. I think that by sometime in 2025, McNeil will be gone, but McNeil will start the team. He will start with the team. He needs to essentially build his value, build his worth. McNeil was injured a lot. He was injured, or at least he was injured a lot at the end of the year, the last couple weeks. But throughout the year, his playing time was given to Mr. Iglesias. Mr. Iglesias was starting a lot at second base, and McNeil has to prove that he still has a lot left in the tank. Yes, he could play all over the field, so he's probably going to start with the team, but quite shortly after that, I believe he will not be a Met, because as I said with Quintana, it's time to turn the page on some of these players, really. You could upgrade your talent, And that's what we're looking to do. We're looking to upgrade our number 4, our number 5 starter. We're looking to upgrade Jeff McNeil. Doesn't have much power. So we're looking to upgrade. Okay, another guy. Now we're getting into more guys, more desirable guys. More, as we go along, you want to keep these guys. Next guy is Luis Severino. Severino exceeded all expectations, and I give him credit. Severino was the first big guy to sign last year. I was a bit excited because, I know he didn't have a good 2023. I knew there was a lot of potential there. Severino pitched 198 and 2/3 innings, the most since 2018. He did it by, supposedly rejiggering his approach, pitching to contact rather than relying on strikeouts. He did a really great job staying healthy. I got to say, 11-7, 3.91 ERA, staying healthy all year. He increased his use of the sinker. And, he made the adjustments he needed to do to be healthy and make, provide value to the Mets. And, being a free agent in the next year or coming up, now he's a free agent, he shows teams that he could remain healthy. And that is ultra important for him. It's ultra important for his value. And I think he's going to ask a little more than what David Stearns values him for. I think they're going to try to find the next Severino, the next Manaea. I think Manaea is more likely, if you're going to shell out around 20-something million, you'd rather shell it out to a guy like Sean Manaea. Okay, so that's a list of 5 players, actually 6 players that I don't think have a good chance of coming back. The other 2 guys that are on many of these will they return lists, Pete Alonso and you have Sean Manaea. Sean Manaea, I think, and I've said this, Sean Manaea, the most I'd give him is 3 years, $75 million. Maybe that, and that might be too much. That might be too much only because he's going to be 33 years old and, this herky-jerky type of motion. You see it with Chris Sale. Guys often get hurt. There's a lot of torque when he has that whipping action with his arm. But we'll see. We'll see. If they give him 2 years at $25 million a year. I mean, Sonny Gray last year signed a 3-year $75 million total value contract. That was something that I'm like, all right, you know what? I would give that to Sean Manaea. I value him as, maybe a 2, a good number 2, probably a number 3 in a good rotation. You figure Kodai Senga would be our number 2. We still need a number ace. Sean Manaea being our number 3, number 4 in the rotation. That's decent. That's decent. But I still want to continually get better. And then last but not least, you have Mr. Pete Alonso. And, I got to say, David Stearns really threw me a curveball at that press conference because I basically had Mr. Pete Alonso out the door. I had him essentially out the door, but Stearns basically gave him a letter like, I want the guy here. I want the guy here. So I'm a little confused about that. And, I don't see how that helps in the negotiation unless they have something that's already agreed upon, unless Pete really wants to come back to New York so much, unless David Stearns thinks he's that smart where he knows Pete Alonso's market before he even develops. I'm not really so sure why he made those comments in the press conference. If you love a guy or not, you don't make those comments unless he was so caught up in the moment emotionally, which could have been the case as well. All right, so let's get to our last thing, and it's the Stearns shocking big move. Every GM, especially a GM with an ego, a bit of pride, often likes to make their mark on a team, and they do that by getting, a very talented player. Yelich was the big trade that kind of turned things around in Milwaukee. Francisco Lindor was the big trade that the Mets GMs, Sandy Alderson, made Jared Porter a couple years ago with the Mets. Could that happen with this time? And what do we need? What do we need where we would go after? What type of player? So I was kind of looking at a couple different positions, and I'm going to throw out 3 names out there. Uh, Let me throw out three names. I'm going to throw out two starting pitchers, and I'm going to throw out one center fielder. And let me start off. I'm going to leave the center fielder for last. Let me start off with the two starting pitchers. So obviously, starting pitching is a thing. Like, you have an ace. That's a benefit. That's a benefit. It would have been nice if we had guys, who could shut down the Dodgers lineup. It would have been nice, right? So here's where we're gonna have to give up a lot of value, a lot of value. So if you feel that Lindor is going to be a shortstop in the next 6, 7, 8 years, you feel Cunha might provide value at second. Mauricio is a player at third. Vientos, or Viento goes to first. Ronnie Mauricio, that is, goes to third. Whatever you see. Let's say you envision you have an infield for the next couple of years. You like Drew Gilbert in the outfield, whatever. Okay, you're gonna have there's a lot of shortstop talent that we still have. Jet Williams, do you have a spot for him? We have some guys that have talent in the minors. So dealing off some of that talent for a potential ace, I think, is something to consider. Who are the potential aces that I would be willing to give some top prospects are? Okay, two names are one, Tariq Skubal. That is, the guy, very talented pitcher on the Detroit Tigers. Detroit is a team whose payroll is around 100 million. They haven't really been spending a lot of money. The team really overachieved this year. They really overachieved. I feel, they could potentially spread out their talent, get 3 or 4 very good players from the New York Mets, as opposed Tariq Skubal goes to year 4, year 5, year 6. He becomes less and less valuable. You would have to pay up. You would certainly have to pay up. Tigers were in a very good position at the end of the year. In the middle of the year, not so much. They were in a losing position. So I think in their situation right now, they went on a hot streak. I don't expect the Detroit Tigers to be as good as they were at the end of the year. I don't. I really don't. But, if you can get a very good package back that blows you away, that's something I would consider. And I'm telling you, you would have to pay up for this kid. Okay, so that's package number one. If you want to give up good value, Tariq Skubal is a 27-year-old guy who could be your ace for the next 5, 6, 7 years. Another guy who's even younger, 25 years old. I think he's going to be 26 next year. But we saw how talented this guy is. Garrett Crochet of the Chicago White Sox. The Chicago White Sox, one of the worst teams in baseball. They don't have a crazy high payroll. They were looking to potentially deal him off at the playoffs. Thing is, Garrett Crochet wanted a contract right then and there, whatever team he signed on with. Garrett Crochet was a guy in the past. Besides this year, he didn't throw a lot of innings, so he was still building up his value. So even if the Mets traded for him at the deadline, there was no guarantee he'd be available in the playoffs. So you give up a lot of talented players. He's not going to be available in the playoffs. What good is that? Next year, you make a trade this offseason, you have Garrett Crochet leading your team for the next three, I believe he signed for 3 more years. But, he's looking for an extension anyway, so you can get him for a lot more than that. And we know money is not an issue. That's a guy I would potentially target because of his age, because of his talent. A guy like that doesn't come around every day. Now, here's the last guy. And the last guy is, when David Stearns traded for Christian Yelich, he got Christian Yelich before Christian Yelich broke out onto the scene, right? Christian Yelich had played 5 years with the Marlins, and he was a very nice player, but Christian Yelich transformed into an MVP. Now, I was looking across the league, and who's another guy that maybe hasn't broke out quite yet, but has nice tools? And this is what leads me over to Colorado, and I'm looking at Mr. Brenton Doyle, and I hope I'm pronouncing his first name right. I haven't watched him play that much. He's in his second year. He's a bit older. Next year, he would be 27 years old, right? 27. So he hasn't had much major league experience. But in his first year, when he was 25, he won a gold glove. He's a very good glove, and that's what I'm building this around. Last year, 10 home runs, 48 RBIs, 22 stolen bases, 203 batting average. Not good, not good, but won a gold glove. This year, you saw tremendous growth. This year at age 26, 23 home runs, 72 RBIs, 30 stolen bases, 260 batting average, 317 on base, 764 OPS. So those numbers are decent, and you assume that they even look a little better because he plays at Coors, right? So maybe if he plays at another the stadium, maybe he hits 18 home runs. So there's a little extra Coors Field value. His wins above replacement was 4.0. That's very good, very good. But he's a guy that I would project he's 6'4", 220 pounds. I project he is a guy who will continually get better. And that is a trade that, I don't think you would have to give anything crazy away. The Rockies obviously don't have any pressure to trade him, so you're probably going to have to give up a nice piece. But let's say you give up a Drew Gilbert, right? You give up a Drew Gilbert. Drew Gilbert's a nice player. They're 2 years apart in age. Brenton Doyle has shown you that he can be successful. He's won a Gold Glove. I mean, that's a trade that I would package around Drew Gilbert in an instant. Drew Gilbert coming off an injury. Drew Gilbert being 5'9", Doyle being 6'4". I'm not saying height is everything, but you're usually more successful if you have a bigger frame, a bigger body. There's guys 5'8", 5'9" who are successful major leaguers, but there's just not that many. There's not that many. So I would take the more sure thing and build around a guy who I think is still getting better. So if you give Drew Gilbert and maybe a middling pitching prospect, maybe that gets it done. Maybe since I don't follow this guy, he's a guy that's really coveted by the Rockies, but I haven't seen it really in his production. And he's a guy that possibly could really these numbers could be nothing compared to what he possibly can do. His one, and besides, Brendan Doyle, and I'm also looking at his OPS plus. It's 104. That's 4 points above league average. That's not impressive. Okay, so those are my potential 3 surprise trades. Brenton Doyle. We have Tariq Skubal. And we have Garrett Crochet. So what do you think? What do you think is that trade out there that impacts signature David Stearns trade? I know there are a lot of free agents out there, but these are just trades that I think would really cement David Stearns saying, okay, Garrett Crochet, that's who you associate with David Stearns. That's what he did in year 2. That's what caused the Mets to be over the top. That's what caused them to be on a World Series run and hopefully win the World Series. So, all right. I apologize. This video was a little long, but there were a lot of big topics that I just mashed all in one video, if you couldn't tell. Thank you so much. If you stuck around this long, you got to like. You got to subscribe. Let's go, Mets. And we got a lot more fun videos to come. Thank you so much. Have a great day.